Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome into the Gramlich and McLean podcast, presented by Ingles, the official supermarket of Gramlich and McLean. We are back with our summer guest series that continues to roll on, Mac. And we have a special guest today, a guy who I interviewed a good bit when I was doing radio. He doesn't remember me at all, which is fine. But you know him very well because you played with him at Clemson. Tell us more about our guest.
Yeah, come on, KG. We've got my brother here, Justin Falcinelli. Falcy, as we like to call him. You hear me say that throughout the thing. And he came in with my brother-in-law, Cannon Smith. And, they've been the best of friends. We're roommates at Clemson. So, I was kind of forced into that association there. And of course, being an offensive lineman, I'm kidding. He's a great kid and a great man now. And it was fun to, be the guy that was there, kind of with him and tried to be a mentor and get him in the right, place. And, what was different about Justin that I knew very early on is he was a much more forward thinker than like, I'm going to the NFL. He was like, no, I'm going to make the most of this opportunity. Here's what I'm going to do. Super smart guy. And you guys will see that, but also just big picture items. I was the president of SAC when we were at Clemson, the Student Athletic Advisory Committee. And he loved that stuff. Like we would talk about different issues that we saw, different solutions that we could bring up. And so I just knew that, okay, he's going to be something someday and linger around college athletics. And I didn't know how that was going to be, but it turns out it's with the CFBPA, the College Football Players Association. This is one of the, if not the only legitimate organization, KG, right now that is really pushing the envelope and trying to figure out the different ways to represent, these college athletes, these football athletes in the college ranks here. And I figured, let's just bring somebody on to talk about it because it's changing every single day. There's different aspects of this that are changing. And Justin really provides some great insight on here on what they are doing, what Congress is talking about, DC, all these. They were just there. They were there for a couple of days with these great meetings. And this interview was super informative. And he does a great job explaining a lot of this stuff from people who maybe have no idea what we're even talking about.
Yeah, for sure. That was what was really interesting to me, because honestly, I haven't educated myself too much on the issue, but talking to Justin, I feel like I know a lot more and at least know the basics of what's going on. And he explains it really well. So I was impressed by that. And he's a vice president of the CFBPA. And you can go to cfbpa.org to find out more information about it. He also was a really good player, by the way, at Clemson too. He started on the 2018 national title team. So we got to give him his props there as the center. So definitely for sure. And Mac, I just, he explains it well. He also understands the issues that they're going to have to navigate, right? He's not like, this is it. This is the end all be all. And if this doesn't work, you're stupid. Like that's not his impression of this at all. He's very good at explaining the nuances because this is a very nuanced issue. Right. And I'm just curious how it would work beyond college football as well. I think starting with college football is obviously the way to go because that's where most of the money's being made. But how does that trickle down to women's basketball, men's basketball, baseball, whatever, softball? So all that is yet to be known. And it's all happening in DC, so it's going to take a while. But they're working on it, and they're doing a great job. And so I loved hearing his perspective, Mac.
Yeah, me too. And I think the way you laid it out right there is perfect. And how he explains things, the nuances, and, truly understanding that this is political and things, there's going to be trade-off. There's going to be one side doesn't like it. There's
compromise happening perhaps and some middle ground, which.
Because here's the deal. Here's the deal. Whether you're red, blue, white, independent, whatever party you allegiance with, we all love some college football, baby. And we're going to come together to figure it out. We're going to come together to figure it out. All right, so this interview was great. We're going to get to it quickly. Again, a message from our friends over at Ingles. Cannot do this without their support. You guys saw it all last week. I was firing up on that grill, making some ribeyes, some lobster, whatever you need. Best meat in town. Ingles has it. So quick message from our friends, and then we'll get to the interview.
It's time to discover the convenience and time savings of contact-free pickup with Ingles Curbside. Just visit shop.ingles-markets.com or download the app. And your Ingles personal shopper gets to work with specialized training on how to select the freshest items for a pre-scheduled pickup. They'll even text you with updates. You pull up to a designated space and your personal shopper delivers your items right to your vehicle. Fresh, fast, and affordable. It's all in the bag. Ingles. Low prices. Love the savings.
Justin Falcinelli, my brother, great to see you. For those that don't know from an ACC perspective, Justin and I played together when he was a young little baby at Clemson. He grew up, became a national champion, all these different things that he did for Clemson, played the center position, and now has moved on and is affecting this sport like few are, working with the CFBPA and all the future things. Justin, the world is changing very quickly in college athletics, and you're square in the middle of it. So we brought you on today to talk about all of that and dive into these different things. So thank you for joining us, my brother. Great to see you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me. It's an exciting time for college football, and even since I graduated in 2018, the amount of change we've seen from then to now, and even over just the past 2 years, it's moving insanely quickly. So things change fast, and it's important and to really try to stay on top of it. And so what we do is just reaching out to players across the country, current players, former players, to talk to them, to get their opinions about what they want the future to be. Because right now, the problem we see is that the current players do not have a say in the rulemaking and the revenue sharing and any of the ongoings of college football. It's mostly backdoor deals negotiated by people that we don't know, that didn't necessarily play the sport, that aren't necessarily ever coaches or administrators. But it's really just, we are doing work to bring current players to the negotiating table and give them the power to shape their future.
I love that, man. And KG, you were joking before we started recording here that you wanted me to set the table and to share, or you wanted Justin to, you wanted him to share some stories or whatever to talk about me a little bit. But I want to flip it quickly, and then Justin, you can say whatever you want. It's all bets are off.
Okay.
Don't hold back.
Listen, I took great pride in the weight room and being a guy that would bring people along. And hey, this is a young freshman, we got to get him going, do all these things. And so Justin and my brother-in-law Cannon were kind of like my little proteges when they were the freshman class and bringing them in. And so we were sitting there and we were bench pressing. Of course, what else do we do? We're offensive linemen. We moved some weight, and Justin had his chart and he had his numbers, and this is what he was going to do. And I can't remember the weight, Justin. So you'll have to remind us if you remember. But he had X weight, and myself and Ryan Norton are like, no, we're bumping this up. We're bumping it up. And I'll say 315, 405, whatever it was. You're going to do this, Fauci, and you're going to get it. And he's sitting under that bar and he's saying, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I said, you're getting this up, brother. And he did. He made it happen. He became this freak of nature. So, Fauci, I don't know if you remember how much weight that actually was, but I feel truly responsible for just pulling out the max amount of talent we could for you while you're at Clemson.
Oh, I'll say I don't remember that at all. So.
Hey, Cannon and I talk about it once a month.
Happened.
Cannon and I talk about it once a month, so it happened. It happened.
And Justin, I doubt that you said, I can't do it.
No,
Matt
I swear
just,
listen, if I could phone a friend and bring Cannon in right now, he screamed it, okay? And we made him do it.
Okay, well, that's very nice of you, Mac. Obviously, you are the reason Justin is what he is. Justin, do you have any stories about Eric McClain that you'd like to share?
My go-to story for Eric, who was always just like the big brother when you get in there, where he was Mr. Clemson. He was the guy who's been there. He was guiding us through everything. But every time we had some off time, I would get a text from Eric being like, hey man, what are you doing right now? And I'd always read that and be like, what does he want me to do?
Right.
I have to think of something quick or he's going to make me go work out with him or do something. Yeah.
I'm busy.
Yeah,
I'm studying probably.
Yeah. Got a lot going on.
Okay, Justin, before we get to your current work with as Max said, the CFBPA, which is, now I'm getting used to saying it. I remember interviewing you, which you don't remember me at all, which is cool. When you were on the 2018 team, when I was with the Roar, and I remember you're getting your MBA. And to get your MBA while being the starting center for a national championship football team, I'm not sure anyone's ever done that. You may be the only one. So how did that process go? And how the heck did you do that?
I was lucky enough to come in with some credits already into college. So I graduated in 3.5 years, and then I was redshirted, so I was there for 5. So I was able, with summer classes, to really get a lot of good progress done on it. So I was able to graduate that December 2018 and have it finished. I was always academically inclined, so it was just part of the process of I am here, I'm making the most of it. This is pre-NIL, so if I'm going to get any value out of my college experience, and it's not going to be through a professional career, it's going to be academic, and I'm going to do the best I can to maximize it. So it was good. It was tough. thankfully now guys who want to do the same, the business school is on campus. I was driving 40 minutes to Greenville for night classes. So getting back at like 11 o'clock at night from school wasn't fun, but was able to get done.
Yeah.
Impressive.
And I think
really it is.
I think it's so fascinating too, Justin, because, you know, what you're doing now, you know, with the CFBPA, it's like, we should have all seen it happening, right? Like you are so mindful and forward thinking and knowing that, hey, this might not be right, what's happening right now, and that there needs to be a change. And I mean, you and I have discussed that ad nauseum, even while we were both still playing and trying to make changes, and how can we do this? What can we do? And, you know, not quite the platform that exists now. Like, the voices of these student athletes is tremendous. And, you know, what you guys are trying to do to really, you know, sub that and take it to another level is fantastic. But kind of just tell people why you were so interested in being in this, how it came about, and, you know, just really how you got started in this whole thing.
Yeah, so I mean, the real drive behind it was playing in the time period pre NIL, pre being allowed to get a cookie, you know, or cream cheese on the bagel, like without losing your scholarship. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So living through that and just seeing, and like I can talk about my experience at Clemson as the example of it, but seeing the small town of Clemson grow from what a small town to just billions of dollars coming into the whole system, and then just seeing that insane growth and the value that winning some football games brings to it, and that everybody affiliated or looking at the program, you know, is making a whole bunch of money on it. And but as athletes, you know, we weren't allowed anything. And even in that process, when they now discuss, like, we're going to expand the playoffs, we're going to limit your transfers in this way, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, no one is asking the actual athletes, you know, what are your thoughts on this? Who are the people that these rules are going to affect? You know, what are their actual thoughts or needs on these things? And that was always my issue with college sports, is that it's the people doing the work, and especially in college football, putting their health, putting their bodies at risk, putting in countless hours, dedicating their lives to this very limited time period to like maximize their success there, have almost no power in the whole system to shape anything. And we've seen that change now with NIL, where guys do have a lot of power, but their only power is, hey, give me X or I'm leaving.
Right.
And so we really see, like, that's not the healthy relationship you want to have. Guys have more power. Guys are getting better benefits than ever before, and that's fantastic. But we want to enable them to have more small levers than just, hey, if I can't get this, if I have an issue with practice, if I have an issue with the coach, if I have an issue with my doctors, if I have an issue with my collective, I want to be able to negotiate that. I want to be able to bargain with the stakeholders to find a solution, not just say, I'm leaving.
Right.
And it's really just shaping that power now to say, hey, let's calm everything down. There's more to it. There's value in sticking around and seeing things through. It took me till my redshirt junior year to be a contributor on the team.
Right.
And it's getting through that as an offensive lineman is a tough time.
Yeah.
But really there is value in sticking it out and trying to work through things and speaking with your coach to shape how you want to be coached, and just really trying to empower guys to see that and to see that future where there's more than just, hey, I'm leaving.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Justin, because yeah, all of us stayed in one place, and it may have not been easy at times, but it was definitely worth it. And it shaped all of us into what we're doing now and what we've become. And I do think some guys are missing out on that, especially kind of that network you have when you're done, if you've been at the same place the whole time. But one thing that you're talking about with the CFBPA is this collective bargaining, right? The ability to have the power, which every other sports entity has, this players association. And tell us more about, you're talking with these guys. The players don't necessarily want to be employees, but as a student athlete, you don't have really any status. So is there like a middle ground where it's almost a student athlete status? Like, is that what you guys are looking for and wanting to have?
Yeah, so there's a couple things there. So in regards to, do players want to be employees? We don't know. I mean, there is no way to actually get the voice of every single player heard, because they're not yet in any kind of, you know, unit that can speak to all of them and amplify their voice. It's a question where you get a mixed bag a lot of times, but there's not a lot of like demand signal for, we all want to be employees. There's some that do, there's some that don't. There's more than one answer here. What we're aiming for and what we proposed last week was that, hey, what guys want is the ability to collectively bargain. They're not necessarily saying like, hey, I want to fill out a time card and get an hourly wage. They're saying we want to be able to sit at the negotiating table with the schools, with the conferences, with the NCAA, with postseason entities, and negotiate the terms at which we're going to play for you. Whether that includes health and safety benefits, revenue sharings, practice schedules, all of those things. Guys want to be empowered and want to have a part in the decision-making process. It's the athletes really want to be treated as partners in this system and not just as the workers. They want to be at the table to negotiate these things. So that's what we're trying to amplify with this, to say, hey, we know that there's a real hard line right now where a lot of schools, a lot of coaches, a lot of administrators say no employee status. That's the last thing we want. And there's the other side of things in the athlete advocate world that is really set in the entrenched in employee status is the only way forward. And those two are just at odds right now. And that's really popped up in the past year. So what we proposed is that we could ask the government to legislate a new employee status, a carve out that says, hey, we'll call it student athlete, we'll call it college athlete. They will have most of the same rights as an employee, and specifically the right to collectively bargain. And through the collective bargaining is how you can achieve all those different aspects of actually having, empowerment to solve problems at your level. Because now, speaking within college football, there's incredible differences in needs from, a Division III team to Division I FBS football. And a broad sweeping legislation or rule or whatever is not going to fit everything very well. You can't get the nuance that you need at that level. So the solution is to go from the bottom up and empower the athletes to negotiate for what they need themselves at their levels with the entities they need to bargain with, the schools, the conferences, at all levels of play, and scope that out to all of college athletics. And you say, D3 golf team, vastly different than D1 men's basketball or football team. And so empowering the athletes to be able to collectively bargain at the levels and to solve their own problems is what we see the future being.
Yeah. And I think it's just one of those things that everything is happening so fast. Everything seems like it's happening at once, but you've got to pay attention to the little things. And I think this is definitely it, that, I say little just because of the step that it will be, but what it will lead to is insurmountable. I mean, it's massive, and all those things that you just kind of laid out right there. And I think what I kind of want to hammer down right now, Justin, is this is like legitimate. Like, you guys are in DC, you're having these conversations, you're going to be, building and writing a bill to make this, thing happen. I mean, at the end of the day, what I guess are the steps right now to kind of getting this collective bargaining, the changing of status, things of that, like, what has to happen and what are you doing right now?
Yeah, and there's a lot going on with it. So this week we were in DC to meet with representatives on both sides of the aisle to discuss what we proposed last week and discuss just kind of the needs of college football and why collective bargaining needs to happen. And they're happy to say there is interest from both sides. College football is a unifying thing that everyone wants to see happen, and college athletics as a whole. So there's absolutely interest in it, and there's interest in kind of ending this impasse right now of, just trench warfare, only employee status or only no employee status. There can be a middle ground solution that works very, very well for the athletes, and that's what we think we hit on. And it's really that same interest of, we heard from congressmen and senators that, like, hey, we don't want to legislate the answer. We don't want to tell them this is how this will go on. This is what the revenue share will be. This will be your medical rights, because they can't get it to that nuanced level for all of college athletics. Again, the needs of volleyball are different than football. The needs of lacrosse are different than basketball. They want to empower the athletes to be able to bargain for these things themselves. So there is real interest there, and we're going to be sending out bullets and notes for what we think this bill should look like this week to all the interested parties, and hope it continues to grow from there.
So, Justin, you guys are proposing, for example, this is a CFBPA, so this would be the College Football Players Association. There would also be a men's college basketball players association, a women's college, that kind of thing. So there would be an association for every sport.
Yeah, this is not a proposal to say, like, there will be one entity that will govern this.
Gotcha.
This is to say, and this is to create a marketplace where players can join or form a players association at will. It's not compelling them to do so, but it's enabling to do
Right.
so, and then have the legal backing to collectively bargain.
Okay, and then also in the 7 bullet points, which you guys can check out on the website, but one of them is the percentage of big money media rights, revenue contracts for the players whose name, image, likeness are used in that media. That's when I think the overall media people say collective bargaining is on the horizon, right? They kind of throw that out there, buzzword. That's the one that gets people's attention because these media deals are massive. They're huge. And you're seeing the kind of money that these schools are getting from them. So how do you see that shaping up, Justin? Do you see, and a percentage maybe is, you can't really predict that right now, but do you see a certain amount not going to the school and going to the player? Like what do you envision there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a real open question. So we have that plank, and it's plank, I think, 6 or 7.
Okay.
Or 5. I played 4. Plank 4
There you go.
there. Yeah,
There are 7
It's
total.
1 through
that you
7.
guys have.
It's one
Yeah,
of
1
1
through
through 7.
But that along with the plank for group licensing were added when we were at Penn State in the summer of 21, 2 years ago now, I believe, where we were organizing players at Penn State around this. This was in the middle of the Big Ten media rights deal renegotiations, where we saw their potential revenue triple into the billions of dollars per year. I think it was ended up at $1.3 billion a year, because we had been organizing solely around health and safety, healthier practices, post-career health protections, whether that's insurance or access to facilities or something like that. But the players at Penn State had told us, hey, this is a massive deal. We feel like we should be getting a cut of this. We're the ones doing the work. So that was a player added plank. How we see that shape out, we don't know. I mean, there are a lot of antitrust settlements going on, potential settlements going on right now with the House versus NCAA case, where we have to wait and see how that shapes out, because they are talking about establishing a path forward for that revenue sharing through those settlements. If that turns out to be a great deal for the athletes, then awesome. Yeah, leave it alone. But if not, this should be something, and historically is something, that a players' association or union bargains on behalf of the athlete, not settled through a court case. So this is not the traditional route. We would like to see that be something that is done through entities representing the players negotiating those deals. So it could be different for each conference. It could be different at each school. It could be different depending on what players' association is negotiating with the entity. It's a pretty wide open market, but it is generally, there is a consensus that players should be getting a part of this, and they should be allowed to negotiate for it.
Yeah, I've got a little two-parter here. I'm going to start with the first one. Have you done any, imaginary math or number crunching on what you think that should look like? I mean, from a what would the perfect world or the dream scenario look like of the rev share model? Like how much does each guy get? Is it imbalanced? Is it a quarterback gets more than, the left guard? Like how does that work in your mind? And do you guys have kind of a number that, you could foresee happening?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the issues with college football today stem from the fact that there is no base compensation for all athletes. So you would want to establish a floor to come out of these deals that says if you are a college football player, college athlete in general, and you're part of one of these media rights deals, all players get some base level income from that, and then that can be, changed as it goes higher up, based on number of snaps played or, starts or something like that. Luckily, we don't have to look far for these things. These are not new problems in the worlds of sports. It's just new to college athletics. So you can look at the NFL, you can look at the Major League Soccer, Major League Baseball. For media rights deals, this industry standard right now is 50% of revenue, 50 going to the players, not 20 or 30. That's a low industry standard. That's not industry standard right there. That's less than half of industry standard.
Wow.
So we would like to see that number start at 50 in line with the NFL and the other major sports programs. But we know there's work to be done there.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, just to verify and clear that up, 50% going to all 120 D1 schools and then distributed accordingly, right? Like that's what you're saying there?
Or through the conferences.
Yeah. All or through the conferences, but
Right.
all for example, just to say that we'll focus on the Big Ten again, because that's what we did with Penn State, that is $1.3 billion a year. So you would want to see 50% of that dispersed to all players within the Big Ten.
Right.
And then at least to establish a base level of compensation, and then possibly negotiating, scales and ratios off of that for different levels of involvement.
Right.
So,
right.
Justin, how on earth do you get the schools to give up that money?
Yeah, well, that's the best question. So, I mean, that is the problem. And it is why this has not been done before. It is tough. We're talking about a lot of money right now. But thankfully, college football is growing quickly. More money than ever is coming into the coffers of these schools. So there is a gap. We can look at entities like the College Football Playoff that is expanding and is expected to bring in an additional $1 billion of new money this year. And that's money that's not already been allocated out at the school or conference level. So that is money right there before it gets assigned to new buildings or new coaching salaries or new administrative salaries. Let's assign a chunk of that to players with the new money that's coming in that's not already allocated.
Yeah. I think your point is that there's a lot of money. And there are, we've always kind of seen this. There are some people that have gotten rich off college athletics that maybe you're in administration or whatever. In your 7 planks that are on the website, by the way, number 5 is interesting to me as a former athlete myself, not football, of course, a real off season.
What's that?
What
are you talking about?
That idea in college athletics is crazy, right? But you see it at the professional level. I used to, let's say the 2 weeks you had off between summer session ending and school starting, I almost would be like, okay, I'm going home, but I wouldn't want to post on social media like I'm doing this, because then you have the pressure of, oh, did you not get shots up today? It's like, do you have to get shots up every day of your life? What does a real off season look like to you?
And we keep these planks intentionally broad.
Okay.
So we want every point of this to be something that the players in the bargaining unit agree to and negotiate for, and that is what they want to see happen. So for us, we put that on there to, hey, think about this. What as a player do you want to see happen? We know, hey, we're going to have the 16-game college football playoff, and it's going to go into February, and then spring ball starts in February. Maybe not that, setting aside just similar to the NFL where OTAs happen in this period and then there's no team activities for a month. Whether it's a standard like that rather than
mandatory, right? Yeah.
Right. Mandatory.
Yeah, we all know what that
means. My favorite word ever. But I think what's interesting too about that, KG, we all are, bringing up these issues and points from a former student athlete perspective. Coaches want that too.
They want a break,
especially where we are today, and the fact that it is literally 365. Justin, we thought it was that way when we were playing, but now with this transfer portal, with the new rules of coaches can be out there in the summer and all these different regulations, it is literally 365. And I know those guys get burnt out quick and gals in different sports. So I think everybody can really join in on that. We need it. We need a big, and that talks about recruiting too. Like put up these windows for transfer portal, recruiting, everything. And I think it allows you to police things easier and better. I think it allows you to have tangible, real life consequences for when you kind of break these things. We keep mentioning all these different planks and the things here. And I know they're probably in an order for a reason, but for you, if we get down this road and whatever happens, what's the number one thing? Like, is there something where you're like, God, we have to get this done in your perspective as a former student athlete?
Yeah. So the number one plank on there is number one for a reason, and that is guaranteed independent medical care enforced by CFBPA employed full-time employee representative. So what that is saying there is a player rep there who, can go to the school, you can go to as a player to say, like, this is your rep, this is who you can talk to about any issues you are having. And the independent medical care part of that is saying that the school should be liable to pay for you to go and get a second opinion. Across the country, there are issues where team doctors are the team doctor, and whether or not they're part of the university, they're part of the community, they're friends with the coach. There are these situations that aren't actually putting the athlete's long-term health first. They want to keep you on the field.
It's their job.
And that's their job. And it's a tough situation to be in, especially as those team doctors where you are conflicted, where you're responsible to higher powers to keep your job there, and they're influencing you in ways. So I don't blame any individual on it. There's just this broken system where the people who you as an athlete should be looking to for your long-term health and for your safety and your concerns about, hey, I got injured and I'm not getting an x-ray done, or they're not MRIing me, or I don't trust these doctors to do this surgery. I want to go somewhere else. Right now in the current system with the college athletes health insurance, you cannot do that. For the college to pay for your medical expenses, it has to be done through their system and through their doctors. You cannot go out and get a second opinion on their dime. If you have your own insurance, you can, and we recommend that you do so and go get those second opinions. But these schools should be liable for you to be able to go out and get those opinions from people who are not in the bubble.
Yeah, it's a good point too. Okay, this is kind of my last question, and I think a question that people will be asking too. If we get to the point where the student athletes are granted employee status, or the hybrid, maybe the college athlete status, so you're somewhat of an employee, but there's different issues there. Can you be fired?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question coaches fear and players fear right now.
Yeah,
and it's up to debate of, can you be fired right now? We saw this past year and almost an entire team of players get fired. So there's
Colorado, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's not impossible to happen today.
Sure.
Employee status does open up the door to say, like, hey, this is a contractual relationship, we can fire you, and there can be termination clauses in that. Now, you'd like to see employment contracts that say, hey,
so is that the next step, a contract, basically?
If you're going to be an employee, we imagine there would be a contract, and you can, hopefully there's collective bargaining done to create standard employment contracts. So there's at least a framework that all schools are operating from, where it's like, hey, for the next, whether it's a 1-year contract, a 2-year contract, guys are able to negotiate that to say, like, hey, for 1 year, I will not transfer. I will receive these benefits. We will do this, this, and that. Employment contracts are likely what would occur through that. But we got to get there first. Employee status is something right now, it's being debated heavily in the courts. There's ongoing NLRB rulings in California right now. But they're subject to the whims of politics, and changes in the political environment could change the progress of those. So we could next year we could still be 10 years away from full employment status being deemed. So that's why we proposed our more middle ground solution of legislative action to create this carve out to say, like, hey, there are issues today. Like, we can't wait, an undefined period of time for this status to be passed down on them. There's action we can take today that gets us 90% of the protections of employee status and the ability to collectively bargain, which is what guys really want. We can do that now. And that's what we're pushing forward, is saying, like, there is actions to take today that can make things a lot better.
Wait, Justin, a middle ground in politics? What?
A middle ground. It's a crazy idea.
God.
What's that? Is that the color purple? Is that what red and blue equal together? So what is next, man? You talk about right now, how do we get there? What are you doing literally today, tomorrow, to get these steps in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, right now we're working on defining what this bill would look like. So what are the aspects that need to go in for protections for the athlete that would make this possible? So really defining, like, what is this carve out? What are the benefits that will be guaranteed under this new status alongside collective bargaining? Is this going to include a minimum wage or not? Things like that to define those things. Because right now we know from the coaches and the administrative side, there's real fear around just, like, can we afford this? So there's obviously, especially at, D3, D2, and even, D1 schools with tight budgets, that's something that needs to be bargained on. So it's really proposing these guidelines for legislators on, like, if you were to do this, here is how, and here is what we believe is best for the athlete in these cases. Outside of that, we are still actively on the ground organizing across the country. And this is how we get our input, is we talk to current players almost every single day to encourage them to sign up to become members of the Players Association. It's free. You can do it at CFBPA.org. But we also talk with coaches and administrators and people who are interested in seeing this new future come forward. So we encourage you to reach out as well. If this is something that you want to see happen, we'd love to take your inputs on it. Because at the end of the day, the players, the coaches, they're the people that live this world. They were players most of the time. Like, they know what's going on. So there's always the on the ground organizing, becoming part of the association, so we can help you, provide you the framework to make the changes that you want to see at your program, in your conference, throughout your sport.
Yeah, I love it, man. Dude, this was
Putting
so
that
much fun.
Clemson MBA to use, Justin.
Yeah,
Let's
that's right.
go.
Try
That's
my
right.
best.
That's right. Very informative, man. Grateful for your time, Falsey. Keep killing it, dude, because this is a fight that I think a lot of us as former athletes want, for this next generation. And quite frankly, you guys are right on the front lines of that. So appreciate you, brother. Grateful for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Thanks again to Justin Falcinelli for joining us. Again, if you want to find out more information, cfbpa.org, just to check it out. I'm intrigued to see where all of this goes. I did like how honest he was. There are some things we don't have the answer to, like, can you be fired if you're an employee?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yes.
the biggest concern, but
Right.
there would have to be some sort of contractual obligation, and that's set in stone where, like, you can just be fired just because I don't like you,
Right.
that kind of thing. So, which is kind of what can happen sometimes now with scholarships. But anyway, we appreciate Justin's time. Check out more info. He's the best. And yeah, that was great, Mac.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I'm actually going to ask you something here, KG. So pull up those 7, bullet points if you got
The
rid
planks.
of them. Pull up the planks, because I'm interested in your perspective on this too. Because, like, is there one to you, given whatever happened in your career, what didn't happen in your career, is there something on this list of 7 that you're like, this is my number one? And maybe it lines up with theirs, but is there something where you're like, golly, we need this right now?
Well, I think obviously the collective bargaining with the TV contracts is the biggest one.
Yeah.
And even, we're seeing some massive contracts outside of college football.
Right.
Women's basketball signed a big contract with ESPN that's going to go, I think, over the next decade. So that part is, I think, the most important for everybody, because money is the most important and it talks,
Right.
and I get it. But when I looked at these, the one that I looked at was a real off season, as you can see by our discussion with Falcinelli, because it's just so true. Like every other league, the NFL, the NBA, the WNBA, whatever, they have a true off season where they can go on a trip
Right.
and go, relax and not be made to feel like they're not doing the right thing. And that was always what was interesting being a college athlete, is it just felt like if you actually took some time off, that was almost taboo. I mean, you're supposed to be there the whole summer, always getting shots up, always working out, whether it's mandatory or not. It's like, that's just, I mean, it's great because, we love it. That's what we want to do. But everybody, even a 19-year-old, needs a little bit of time off. So that's the one that I would look at, Mac.
Yeah, and maybe I'm just a sicko, meathead, whatever. I don't care about that. Give me the money. Show me the money.
Yeah, I know.
That's what I want.
I know.
That's what I want.
That's the most important one. I get it.
It'll be fascinating. It really is, because I think we're trending there quickly. I just can't wait to see what it looks like, because there's no question about deserving it and what the split's going to be. Problems for Smarter and other people to figure out, not us. But we're going to talk about it. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Appreciate Falsey. This was so much fun. Great conversation. Our friends over at Ingles, everything they do to support us, can't do it without you guys. But we need your help. Go over to YouTube, subscribe, jump in the comments. Let us know about this. I am fascinated to see what people think about this,
there will be some people that aren't happy with this episode. I know that.
But tell me why. Tell me why. I want to know that, because I think that this is a real world thing. Like, it's happening right now, guys. So jump in these comments. Let us know. We'll go back and forth with you. And, maybe we do another episode about this when things happen, because I have to think there's going to be some news throughout the summer, maybe right before fall starts. And I can't wait to see what the updates are. But we need your help. Go subscribe over on YouTube, and the OGs over on Apple Podcasts. Rate, review, subscribe as well. We would greatly appreciate that. But until next time, we'll see y'all.